Hi, I'm Chris Boggs. I'm Chief Marketing Officer with Internet Marketing Ninjas. I'm also the chairman of the board of Sempo.org, the Search Engine Marketing Professionals Organization, and I serve on the advisory board for Search Engine Strategies. Small businesses today really need to be aware of how Google is shifting in the way that they assign authority and credibility to content. I think right now, small businesses, it's always been that small businesses have sort of an equal shot, even though a lot of people kind of think that small businesses get beat up on in Google by the bigger businesses, and that the bigger businesses may tend to favor, or Google may tend to favor the bigger businesses, but in fact, today in 2013, this is the time where if you can establish yourself as a real entity through Google Plus and start to create content that you can attribute to yourself, and then you start to create content across your website, maybe even with other quote-unquote Google authors. This is the way of the future if you really want to, do well from a search engine exposure perspective. I think right now, there's obviously still plenty of ways to, through paid means, work your way in front of people and get your exposure. But organic search continues to be a very strong pull marketing mechanism that has to be leveraged. And right now, small businesses, they're ready. I mean, this is the time for them, I think, to do it, especially if they can establish, if you're a small business, an owner, and you can establish your name to be connected with your industry, you're taking the right step forward. A lot of small businesses, due to obviously the time constraints that you have in managing your business and managing all the different aspects of it, have a hard time committing to social media. It's something that can be time consuming, and you can sometimes wonder what kind of return you're getting on that investment. Google Plus is a bit of a different beast there. I still feel it's extremely important, if you can, to participate in Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, etc. But Google Plus is different because it is Google's way to sort of authenticate who you are and what you do. So you may not get traffic, and you may not get any seeming brand boost from your participation in Google Plus, but what you're doing by participating with Google Plus is really sort of authenticating yourself and making sure that Google knows who you are and what your business is about. Google Plus and Google Local is merging quite considerably, I guess you would say. Google Local for a long time has been very important to small businesses because it allows you to be able to ensure that if you have a physical location and you expect walk-in traffic, that your address is right and your phone number is right, for example. Google Authorship and Google Plus have now tied and merged together with that, and it's just kind of another way, again, for Google to really reinforce that they know who you are and what you do, and that they know then that they're putting out the sort of the right content about you. One of the biggest problems, and from a user experience perspective, Google and other search engines, they want to deliver the right address, they want to deliver the right phone number, they want to deliver the right information about your website. If you're not participating in Google Local, Google Plus, and setting up your profile and your business profile, you're probably missing out on one of the basic fundamentals of just basically queuing or checking your Yellow Pages listing to make sure that it's accurate. But again, the additional side benefit of that is that Google will continue to semantically associate your brand or your name with the type of industry that you're in, and theoretically, 3, 4, 5 years down the line, that may prove very helpful when it comes to Google's algorithm trying to decide, okay, what should I return if somebody searches something that's geographically modified? If you've already established yourself for both the industry and the location, you're going to be that much more likely to show up in the search results for a term that's pertinent to your business. Small business owners will often receive communications from internet marketers making promises. I'm not saying that all the promises are lies, but typically it's a buyer beware kind of situation, especially if you see words like "we promise you first place positioning" or "we'll get you to the top of the rankings guaranteed." Things like that are difficult because, as you know, there's two different types of search results. There's the paid search results, where you can then definitely guarantee, as long as you have a big enough wallet, that you can be at the top of the rankings on a pay-per-click basis. But the organic search results, if they're promising this on that side, there's some serious concerns there. A lot of times in the past, it's been link building that's been a primary means for some less scrupulous internet marketers to sort of cheat the algorithm and help you work your way up the organic listings. Link building has changed, and it's changing tremendously in 2013. As you know, another tangential topic to this is the sort of social media and the social graph. You know, people tweeting about you, people sharing stuff about your content on Google Plus or Facebook. This is all becoming part of that pattern of inbound links. A lot of the things that worked even as late as last year, but really kind of in the late 2000s, had to do with sort of artificially inflating the authority of your pages and your content through acquisition of links. I'm not saying that this is not still being done and that people aren't having success in it, but it's becoming more and more dangerous, and the ROI case there is becoming more difficult because there's a risk when you're associating these sort of what are called black hat link building tactics, so literally buying authority to point towards your content. So now, linking more than ever before has to be very natural, and honestly, if you're not building the type of content that people want to link to and share, it doesn't have to be that everyone wants to link to and share, but as long as it's people that are interested in your subject, then you're taking the wrong approach to the internet. You have to create content that is going to draw links and also be charismatic for your efforts. I'm not saying that you might not, you can just build it and they will come. That's certainly something that you want to stay away from. Granted, if you're lucky enough to build it and they'll come, that's great, and some content will be like that. But in most cases, you still have to throw the bait out there in order to catch that link, right? And nowadays, it's more and more important to understand who would be interested in your content in terms of what kind of communities, blogs, and so forth, and in a non-salesy way to become involved with those communities and basically make the information available, again, in a non-pushy way to people within communities like that. That's how you're going to build this sort of, I guess you could call it a groundswell of authority towards your content, is by taking the time, investing the time, and not expecting that you're going to get the 2 to 3 month turnaround that you used to be able to get from paid links, frankly. There's these concepts of ranking signals and ranking factors, which there are some slight nuances in between. It's kind of the old correlation versus causation argument, right? Signals, I would say, are more on the correlation side, and factors would be more on the causality side. What you're going to find is that as you start to look at a large amount of data, if you're fortunate enough, like we are at the Ninjas, to have a number of clients to kind of look at a macro level, you can start to see signals that indicate that a certain type of activity is helping to promote or better, better support your other efforts to grow your exposure within search engines and to grow your exposure across the social sphere, right? So those signals, as we start to see them grow and they become more relevant, and as you start to look at a data sample that allows you to say, well, this signal looks like it could certainly be part of the ranking factor that seems to be Google's favorite these days, right? It's a key thing to remember. Signals and factors are, I think, continuously evolving and circling, because Google and Bing, it's a, you can call it a symbiotic relationship. You can call it a cat chasing cats type of situation where search engine optimizers are out there trying to figure out what are the ranking factors and then implementing tactics and recommendations that are geared towards satisfying those ranking factors. And then Google saying, well, they found a loophole here and then this and that. So That's why it's very important to continue to monitor signals and factors, because they're constantly evolving. If you start to see that something seems to be a pretty strong signal, and then you can back it up and turn it into a likely factor, it doesn't mean that you're done and you can go play golf the rest of the week. What's likely happening is that other marketers are seeing that same that same manifestation of a factor happening. They're leveraging that knowledge to try to sort of get their way into the rankings for that day. But if they then, like I said, if they sit back and play golf for the rest of the week, their other competitors are continuing to monitor those signals. They're starting to see what seems to be working in the latest, in the latest algorithm updates, and they're going to get ahead of you. So, signals and ranking factors go very importantly together. The signals are the leading indicator. The factors are typically what you start to be pretty confident in believing is an actual ranking factor. We'll never know for sure, except for what Matt Cutts and Dwayne Forrester from Google and Bing tell us. But that's the way I look at it. We know that Facebook has a relationship with Bing. We know that if you're signed into Facebook and Bing, you will be receiving Facebook influenced results in some of your search sets. We don't know for sure, and I think you could say that it's certainly a signal that Facebook likes and shares are important towards ranking at Google. As we also know, Google and Facebook don't exactly like each other a ton, right? They're honestly competitors. They're these really two huge towers. They're not really battling each other as per se, but in a way they are, right? You got the Facebook Open Graph coming out. You've got such a massive shift in user experience and online activity shifting towards Facebook to make it that, hey, if I'm on Facebook all the time, and if I can search something within Facebook and find what my friends feel about something, I may be more likely at that point to be influenced, right? So people are going to start to shift or evolve in the way that they use Facebook in more of a search-like manner, and that's what scares Google. So Google will likely have to, in my opinion, pull in some of that into the way that they're treating it. And that's what they're trying to do with Google+. And they want their own Facebook, right, to do this. But frankly, they have to use Facebook if they want to get it right, because no one's using Google+ really in the way that they use Facebook. So I would say that likes and shares are important, but it's more of a signal or a hunch now than a sort of established and proven factor within the algorithms.